Good afternoon, everybody. This is Omar Serato with the Tilted Lawyer podcast, debuting our brand new segment, Tilted Lawyer Daily. And this afternoon, I just caught wind in the Chad Doermann case. If you ever wondered whether or not there was anybody out there that was worse than Christopher Watts, well, let me introduce you to Chad Doermann, who, well, as the story goes, laid down to take a nap with his three young boys, and then as they awoke, decided to hunt them down and take them out with his rifle, AR-style rifle. He was arrested and subsequently thrown in jail. He's currently awaiting trial, and there were a lot of major decisions in that case. They just threw out a statement that he gave to the police, and the question is whether or not this opens up the prospect for whether or not this man's going to go free. We're going to talk about it coming up next. Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serato with the Tilted Lawyer podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started. Well, folks, if you hadn't heard before, I actually covered this case when it happened back in June. It was one of the most horrific murder scenes, and I called it at the time in American history. I still think that. I feel that when law enforcement showed up to the scene, they have to follow certain protocol. It was one of the only times that I can see that I've ever seen in a murder investigation where the cops, and it's all on body cam, where they get there and they are visibly disturbed by what they found. And if you could imagine, law enforcement arrives and immediately there's young children strewn about, very clearly deceased. And as the suspected killer sits there on the front steps leading into his house, they arrest him. And if you watch or have ever had the opportunity to watch the body cam footage from that, it is one of the most raw displays of police work that I've ever seen when it comes to their initial emotions running into a crime scene like that. So if you haven't heard, just to recap it for you, according to the Bill of Particulars, on June 15th of 2023, Chad Doermann, he returns home early from work, and he requests that his sons, his three sons, and his wife join him in the primary bedroom for a nap. Sometime after they had laid down on the bed, Doermann opened his gun safe and retrieved a Marlin Model 70 HC 22 caliber rifle. And if you're unfamiliar, those rifles are essentially used to hunt small game, squirrels, rabbits, rodents, that kind of thing. But he retrieves it, and then Doermann shot his sons, his first son, Hunter, twice, killing him instantly. The wife immediately begins trying to help Hunter while telling the others to run. And then they're running from the family residence. And at this point, the stepdaughter, who was watching television at the time, enters the bedroom, witnesses the first shots. She runs after Clayton, one of the boys, tells him to keep running. Doermann chases him down into a nearby field and executes him, shoots him right behind the back of the head at point blank range. The suspect carried Clayton's body back to the house's yard and laid him about in front of the house. The stepdaughter then re-entered the house, picked up Chase, and escaped to the road. Doermann followed her and aimed the rifle at her, telling her to put Chase down. He tried to fire, but was out of ammunition. Chase runs to his mom, who is now standing outside in the yard, trying to render aid to Clayton. The stepdaughter gets away, and she runs down the street. I think she had run to like a liquor store or something like that before trying to let people know that what her stepdad was doing. She ended up at the Monroe Township Fire Department, where 911 was called. Doermann then goes inside, carries Hunter's dead, lifeless body outside in the house, lays him in the yard, and then he tries to wrestle Chase away from his wife. And in one of the most horrific scenes you could ever imagine, here is Chase. His mom is desperately trying to protect him with every ounce of fight that she had in her little body. And Doerman is, he's fighting his wife, trying to wrestle Chase away from her. And he bit her in the process. He managed to grab the rifle, and then he fires, shooting his wife in the thumb, causing her to drop Chase, who Doerman then shot in the head. And at that point, he lays Chase's body down next to his brother's, and he sits on the side stoop of the house on these little stairs that run inside of the house, and waits for the police to arrive while his wife is actively trying to resuscitate the boys. And if you could imagine the crime scene, and I'm going to show you guys a video of what the body cam showed on the occasion. It's horrific. Here is some footage of the body cam. And this is from the Law and Crime Network. And let me just change the camera here. There we go. And I'm going to enlarge this. So this is the cops arriving on the scene. Everything that I just described has already transpired. This is the front of the house. Cops approaching with guns drawn because they're aware that somebody's opened fire. They're kind of aware of what's going on.
We gotta find cover first. We ain't no good if we ain't safe ourselves. Hey, no. We need to come from We're gonna approach from this side. We got cover. Right here.
629 and 63 type out.
And here's where they approach Chad.
Stand up! Stand up now! Stand up! Stand up! Get your hand up.
That blacked out portion right there, you wonder why the cop's being so rough with them when he just gets there. The blacked out portion is one of the bodies of the deceased young boys. Anytime you see anything blocked out, that's what they're blocking out.
Get your hand up. Cover 21. It's in there. There's people in the place there, that's the shooter. He's not complying. I got it. They have to shoot him and shoot him. Man, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. I'm completely sober. That's 63. We're 21. Get the EMS over here. Well, I'd be drugged real quick, but I'm going to be drugged now. I'm sober. I'm not trying to hurt you. 63. Get your butt inside. Yeah, get your butt inside. We on primary? Now. 29, we got 3 things down.
I believe that is his wife yelling in the background right there.
You're clear, they're being advised. 63, do you want to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard. What are you doing, man? Can I roll over? I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody. You got anything on you? No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it. I'm bad. I ain't nothing. Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think he'll bite you. Just don't reach for him and try to grab him and pet him. All right. He won't bite you. What's going on, man? Nothing. Can I stand up? Just kind of uncomfortable. I'm gonna get you here in a second. I ain't you can do whatever you want.
here. You the only one else inside the house?
What?
You the only one else inside the house?
Yeah.
Sit down right here.
My daughter, she ran over to the fire department.
Sit down.
It's my stepdaughter.
Put him in the cage.
This is what. This is what.
They're all being advised to like request two additional medics. There's also air through flying, but they need an LV and all coming. Yeah.
Can you get the wallet out of my back pocket? You shut up, dude.
21.
Yeah, the right to main style was fucking easy.
And that's pretty much the gist of the body cam. Of course, there's more, but you hear at the very end, the officer is trying to keep his composure. He's trying to not take this guy into the back of the woods and, you know, do something to him that they might have done back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, before we had all these body cams. But these cops, you can see they're visibly shaking. I mean, just imagine the horrificness of that account that I just told you. A mother literally trying to wrestle off her husband who was trying to actively execute her son and shoots her in the thumb. And then, well, he carried out his plan, didn't he? There's not much more horrific of a scene that you could ever conjure up. But that's what they were confronted with. So I did a whole episode way back when, and maybe I'll link back to it in the description if you wanted to learn more about that. And that was really before, it was on the eve of his arrest or after his arrest, after he made his very first court statements and everything. He gave a full-on confession. And, well, his defense attorneys have tried, successfully now, but they filed a motion to suppress his confession because it violated his constitutional rights. I just came to find out today, this afternoon, and I'll just play you a little bit of this if I could find it. This one from Crime Flicks. Well, I guess they got it from Crime Flicks, but it's on the Law and Crime Network. But this is what they had to say, and I'm just going to show the first couple of minutes of this so you can get an understanding of what happened.
Has been thrown out of court. Thanks for joining me for Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. The judge in Chad Doermann's case has made his decision. Detectives in Claremont County, Ohio, violated Chad Doermann's rights when they questioned him following his arrest last June. Doerman faces the possibility of the death penalty for the murders of his 3 little boys, Clayton, Hunter, and Chase. What he's accused of doing is so heinous and sickening. He's accused of laying down with them to take a nap and then hunting them down with a rifle and shooting them. Deputies found Doerman with that rifle sitting next to him on his front porch when they took him into custody. And while the crimes he's accused of committing are unspeakable, that's not what the judge's ruling is about. This is about the rights Doerman and the rest of us have when we're taken into custody by law enforcement. Judge Richard Ferenc says detectives in Ohio violated Doerman's rights in 2 ways. First, the judge said detectives did not properly advise Doerman of his Miranda warnings. That's what you hear about on police shows. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you can say it will be used against you, and you have a right to a lawyer. This is what Detective Michael Ross said when questioned by Doerman's lawyers about his failure to read Doerman his full rights.
One's talking about advice before you question, and the other's talking about having a lawyer present during questioning, isn't it?
Yes. I'm not a robot. I probably should have read the entire card, but I'm not a robot.
Then you read, if you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed. If we left out for you before any questioning, you would, right?
Again, yes, I must have left that out.
Judge Ferenc ruled that the detective did not fully and properly advise Doerman of those rights. I'll have more on my thoughts on Ross's comments in a bit. Second, Judge Ferenc said detectives continued to question Doerman.
I'm going to just see what this says here. The custodial, I'll wait for a lawyer. I don't know. Give me a couple of days. I can talk to a lawyer and get nice, good answers. Therefore, irrespective of the detective's failure to fully and properly advise Doerman of his Miranda rights as immediately set forth above, all statements obtained during the custodial interrogation shall be suppressed, and the state shall not adduce any of these statements in their case in chief. So just straight up a failure to follow Miranda. So when I used to work at the DA's office a lifetime ago now, these motions to suppress would happen all the time, almost regardless of whether or not there was actually a case to make on behalf of the defendant. And, you know, illegal search of the car, violation of Fourth Amendment protections, whatever. And most of the time, there's not a whole lot there. And sometimes you would get these objections to interrogators who would proceed with an interrogation, and there would be like these borderline statements where it'd be like, okay, well, I'm not going to say anything more until I get an attorney. Like, oh, all right. And then they stop questioning them. But then, you know, they sit there in a room for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then the defendant would get nervous and he would start talking anyway, essentially waiving his rights to Miranda. That can happen, but you have to say the full Miranda warning. And what you heard that cop say on the stand is idiotic. He says, I'm not a robot. I probably didn't read the full warnings. They literally have, most law enforcement agencies that I've ever dealt with have Miranda cards that they literally pull it out of their pocket and they will read it to you because they want, and they'll get it on their body cam so that it could be unequivocal that it's, look, you have right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. You can't afford an attorney. One will be provided for you, and you know all of these things. But if you don't give them those warnings, there's that very famous case about Miranda, who was actually a piece of shit. But that's who the law is based off of. This one guy, Miranda, who was a very abusive man. I forgot the specific charges that he was facing, but the cops essentially got a confession out of him through, you know, essentially how they used to get convictions back in the day, which is to take him in a room, and they didn't have to tell him that he could get an attorney. They didn't have to tell him about his Fifth Amendment rights, and they could basically manipulate him into a confession. Now, it's good that we have these warnings. People should be aware of that, but the person on whom this law is based is not the most savory of characters. At any rate, Chad Doermann, as horrific as what he did, it doesn't forfeit his constitutional rights. And here's what it means. Does it mean that he's going to have the opportunity to perhaps win his trial because there's no confession? I highly doubt it, because there's plenty of witnesses. They have his wife. She is alive. They have a stepdaughter. There's a reason why she ran to the fire department to alert the cops. They have his wife, who's going to testify about how she was trying to protect her last alive child from annihilation from this guy, Doerman, when he shot her in the thumb, causing her to drop him, and then where he subsequently executed her son. She's going to recount her. Let me just put it this way. We speculated a lot in previous episodes about the guilt or innocence of certain people. I'm referring specifically to Nicole Kessinger. This is an open and shut case with or without the confession. He could say that he was insane or mental instability. I don't know if he's going to try that defense or not. It's not probably going to go anywhere because if I recall my analysis from before, there was a lot of instances where he clearly was able to distinguish between right and wrong, which is usually the standard when it comes to these kinds of cases. He's still getting convicted, but it goes to show how important competent law enforcement work really is. Because what if they didn't have any witnesses? What if there was no surveillance footage, and all of a sudden we have his confession, but we can't use it because dipshit forgot to read the entire card? Well, that's how you could really screw up an investigation. And so for whatever that's worth, is he going to walk free from all of this? No, there's not a chance. But hey, if any of you are out there and you're ever questioned by the police or you're suspected of being arrested, number one, there's a difference between being detained. There's a difference between being arrested. There's a difference between just shooting the breeze with the cops. So if they question you, you don't have any. They have no authority to force you to say anything, and that's always going to be true no matter what stage of the investigation is. If you're detained and you're free to go, and they want to ask you questions, well, if they do that, then you have certain rights, and they can't just start questioning you and like badgering you. Matter of fact, whatever you tell the cops, just know this, whatever you tell the cops, it's going to be on body cam. Maybe, I mean, there's a chance where it might not, but they will take your statements, even if it's not on body cam, they're going to put it in a police report somewhere, and then they're going to testify to what you said, and they're going to refresh their recollection if it's not recorded from their police notes. So you're really not served by telling them anything. If you're suspected of a crime and you know that, because you're no longer just shooting the breeze with the cops, you are now detained and they've sat you in the back of a cop. They said you're not free to leave. Then it's like, okay, well, I want my lawyer. And if they ask you anything after that moment, then whatever you say to them is going to be inadmissible in court if you can prove that you weren't Mirandized prior to questioning. And that's kind of what happened here. So it's not really going to affect this trial insofar as they're not going to get a conviction in this case. There's no chance they don't get a conviction. I mean, what jury is going to hear that evidence and decide, oh yeah, not guilty? It's just going to make it a smidgen more difficult to get the conviction, but they're going to get it, no doubt. But it's instructive in that it's really important to know that the cops are human. And there's going to be situations, there may be a situation in your life where they think that you're guilty of something. And if they believe in their heart that you are guilty of something, and remember what I always talk about. I always talk about law enforcement, the parties in the case, the attorneys on both sides, the judges, the people that are in the jury box, the people that are in the gallery observing what's going on. Everybody believes that there's a good and a bad, and everybody believes that they're on the side of good. Unless they just don't care if they're on the side of the bad and they proclaim that. I mean, that happens. But most of the time, people believe they're doing the Lord's work, whoever you think the Lord is. And if they believe in their hearts, like in this instance, what if Chad wasn't the guy that shot them, but he's the one sitting there with the rifle, and then all of a sudden somebody just opens up in the name of all that he believes is good and righteous in the world and opens fire on this guy. He might have been the guy that was trying to defend the kids, trying to give them a statement, but he acted out of emotion. Well, they do that also when it comes to interrogation. And these cops, you can see that they were clearly physically bothered by what they had witnessed, and they did not do their jobs properly. Is it going to cost them a conviction in this case? No, I don't think it is. But if you have the card, read the freaking card, man. Jesus. Well, I mean, I was going to say it couldn't have happened to a better guy. I had wondered, and when I just did these videos on the Christopher Watts case, if I could think of anybody worse. And we've covered some pretty bad people on my show anyway. There's been a lot of them, but do I put anybody above Christopher Watts? Chad Doermann would be probably my exhibit A. And it's hard to say who's better, who's worse, if there is a better or not. Or you just put them in the same category as pieces of S. But this is a horrific case. Luckily, this is not going to cost anybody conviction. But let me know what you guys think about that. I wanted to take some time in my inaugural Tilted Lawyer Daily episode to kind of explain some things on the show. So many of you question about my diffusers that I always have going. Oh, I don't even have this one going. But these are my diffusers. Why do I have them? Because I like them. Because I like the way they look. They smell amazing. Some of you said, hey, but it's so close to the monitor. It's not. These are only really on when I'm recording. So it's never really, it hasn't affected anything so far. But more importantly, they keep the air nice and moist in here, which I prefer. And so I really like them. They're great, and I'm not going to get rid of them. I used to have one right in front of me, but somebody got mad at me because the smoke was in my face, and they said it was distracting. And they got ADHD, and they couldn't handle it, which I said, fair enough. Just to highlight a message to all of the Zawakians out there who I've so come to know over the last couple of weeks. You guys have kind of infiltrated and adopted me, I hope, as a part of your daily listen. And, I've heard so many of you guys refer to yourselves as junior detectives. because of what DA Rourke said about people that were still wanting Nicole Kessinger prosecuted in this case. But it's funny that he says that. And my position is that he said that specifically out of a space where he's being overly defensive, because I think he knows that he kind of screwed up this investigation. And so imagine he's got to get reelected as a DA in Colorado. And exhibit A of his incompetence is possibly the Nicole Kessinger exhibit. Everybody wanted her investigated. So he's defending it as hard as he can. It's like everybody thinks they're smarter than me and whatever. And I honestly don't know what he said. I didn't hear that podcast, and and honestly it doesn't matter. What DA Rourke's opinions about the people that want a conviction, to me, does not matter. He refers to you guys as junior detectives. And then there's so much made about it. Oh, finally, a lawyer is looking into it. Folks, there's been lots of lawyers that have looked into this case. And don't think that just because I have a law degree, I've gone to law school, I've passed the bar and done all of these things, I've tried cases, that it makes me any smarter than you as it relates to the common sense of some of the things that you find. The only difference really between me and you is that I'm much better at marshaling the evidence and knowing what's going to stick in court and what's not, and being able to give, with greater accuracy, my prediction of what's going to happen. But junior detectives, look, criminal law, especially criminal law, is governed by juries. The law doesn't matter. I mean, we write what the laws are. Legislators write the laws, but you guys, the ones that decide guilt or innocence, we have to cater to you and your common sense and your beliefs. And what are those based off of? Everything that comprises of you. They have nothing to do with law school, nothing to do with jurisprudence. It has everything to do with humanity. And so don't let anybody talk down to you like that. And it really pisses me off when attorneys and or people that are affiliated with law think that somehow because they hold a JD and have attended some fancy law school somewhere that they are entitled to assert their opinions above and beyond folks that haven't gone that route. It bothers me because literally the only difference between me and you is I decided to go to law school and I took those courses. I passed law school, studied for the bar, passed the bar. That's it. Was it hard to do that? Yeah, not a lot of people do that, but that doesn't mean that any of you couldn't have done the same thing. And so literally it doesn't make me special, the fact that I have this law degree and I am opining on the case. So this message is directly for Zawacki, because I saw his live stream from like a couple of weeks ago where he was getting kind of down on himself. And, I felt really bad for the guy because he shouldn't be getting down on himself just because he has an interest and a passion for subject matter. And, people want to say, this or that about why they think that he's doing it. The only person that could answer that is him. But he does fantastic work, and he has built up a community of really good people that are passionate about certain topics. One of them happens to be the Watts case. But do not let anybody look down upon you just because you don't have a law degree. Junior detective's my ass. I mean, it's such a condescending thing for them to say, but I'm proud of everybody because you guys seem to have adopted that moniker and have run with it, which is great. I am hopefully going to be doing a collaboration with Zawacki pretty soon in the coming days. He's reached out to me and I've reached out back to him, and we've been trying to kind of schedule something. He works, I run the law office, and so we're going to try to coordinate that. But I am going to be making an appearance on another channel, Watts Obsession. The owner of that channel had reached out to me and asked if I would do a live stream with her, which I'm going to be doing on Friday nights, this Friday night at 6 p.m. And I assume what we're going to be talking about is the mock trial that we just performed in this case. Well, in this case, that we did recorded last Friday on Nicole Kessinger's involvement in the Watts murders. So I have some opinions about how it went, and I'm going to share those on her live stream, and hopefully with Zawacki as well. We're going to do something similar. But I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to continue to be putting out daily content now, at least Monday to Friday anyway. I try to take the weekends off. I got to spend some of the time with the family. You know what I mean? But for all intents and purposes, that's all I really have for you guys today. And I hope that you guys will join me tomorrow when we talk about whatever the wind blows this way. But we will see you guys tomorrow.